Will CJ Carr be a Heisman finalist? Is Notre Dame going to host a playoff game in 2026? And can Marcus Freeman win a national championship in South Bend? Luke Smith and I are telling you whether we're buying it, selling it, or holding it coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Irish, your daily home for Notre Dame football. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak, Notre Dame alum and Fox Sports producer, and I am thrilled to have you here with me on Wednesday, February 25th. Thanks as always for making this your first watch or listen of the day. If you are here on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button, or if you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe on your preferred platform. And please drop your mailbag questions for Friday in the YouTube comments or on X at Locked On Irish and on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, today we are bringing back a classic sports radio format, buy, sell, or hold, and I had to bring in my good friend and former co-host Luke Smith to do it right. Is CJ Carr capable of topping Brady Quinn's numbers from 2006? Is the 2026 defense actually going to be better than that 2024 unit that carried them to the national title game? And could a true freshman actually start on a defense that's going to be one of the most experienced in the entire country? And which Notre Dame head coach is here longer from this point forward, Freeman or Micah Shrewsbury? We're debating ceilings, expectations, and the real trajectory of this program with just under a month to go until spring practice. All right, joining me now is someone the everyday viewers and listeners of this show know very well. It is the one and only Luke Smith, and today we are doing a spring practice edition of Buy, Sell, or Hold. We took some time away from watching the Notre Dame Duke game, which is happening live right now while we record, and as I look at the score, Notre Dame is down 60-30 with over 15 minutes left to go in the second half. So I think we're good there. But today, I've got a bunch of statements about the 2026 season and a few beyond. We've even got some basketball prompts in there as well. We're going to move through these pretty quickly. Just quick takes, instant reactions, whether you're buying it, selling it, holding it, and then a brief explanation as to why. Luke, are you ready?
Let's do it.
CJ Carr will be a Heisman finalist this season.
I'm buying this. I think that if Notre Dame wants to get to where they want to go, especially with the loss of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, CJ Carr needs to take his game to another level. And I think that if he's able to do that, everything's going to follow, and that will result in him being in New York in December.
I'm buying this as well. I think that CJ Carr is ready to take a big leap, and I think we all have to be honest with ourselves here. Being the Notre Dame quarterback, especially with a last name like Carr, definitely provides him some advantages when it comes to being invited to New York City, but I think he's going to back it up with his play, and I think his real Heisman moment is going to come late in the season, which is good for him. I think it's going to happen against Miami on November 7th. So he's got really everything going for him in terms of like a favorable schedule so he can pad his stats. He's got the name, he's going to have the brand, and I think he's going to have a Heisman moment as well. Will he actually win the award? That remains to be seen, but I definitely think he's going to be in New York. Now, this next one is a little bit different. CJ Carr will have a better statistical season than Brady Quinn in 2006. And for reference, Brady Quinn completed 62% of his passes, had over 3,400 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns as well.
Man, I think I'm gonna sell this. Those are some big numbers. To 37 passing touchdowns in general is a huge number. I mean, what did Ian Book have that one year in 2019? Was it
34,
38?
I believe.
Okay. All right. Something like that. Yeah. I think that what's going to happen is that in so many of these games, Notre Dame is going to be up by so much because at least right now we're looking at a schedule that doesn't look all that enticing, that he's probably not going to play a lot of fourth quarters or maybe even second halves in some instances. So I'm going to sell this, but you never know. He could really put up some big numbers without the same rushing game that they had this past year, but I'm going to sell this one.
It's actually even less compared to what Brady Quinn did in 2005 when he nearly had 4,000 passing yards. Now, the difference was Notre Dame was able to run the ball a little bit better in 2006, but I was trying to compare that to Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza threw for just over 3,500 passing yards. He had 41 passing touchdowns, though, to 6 interceptions, and he had the highest QBR in the country. So I'm going to hold this for now, and I think it's going to be dependent on what Notre Dame does running the ball. Because if they can run the ball really well, they're not going to really have to throw it as much with CJ Carr. But I still think he's going to put up good numbers. But, 3,400 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, that's a lot. And a Notre Dame quarterback hasn't thrown for over 30 passing touchdowns since Ian Book did it back in 2019. Next up, Nolan James Jr. will finish second on the team in rushing.
I'm going to hold on this one. I'd like to see a little bit more, see what Kedron Young looks like coming off of injury, see what the two freshmen and Walton and Osborne look like as well. I think Nolan James could potentially have a little bit of that Kyron Williams type experience where there was a lot of hype on him going into his freshman year, and then you just didn't really see a lot of him. When you did, it wasn't really the most impressive. And then the next year, he kind of blew up. But I just think with some of the other uncertainties in that room, besides Aeneas Williams, I'm not ready to say that he's going to be number 2 right now.
I'm going to go ahead and buy this. And I realize that might be a little bit premature. I guess I'm just doubtful about when Kedron Young is going to get back to 100%. I don't expect him to participate much in spring practice. I'm sure he'll do workouts and stuff, but he's not going to be out there in full pads or anything like that because he tore his ACL in August. He should be ready to go by fall camp, but I just think that what we were hearing about Nolan James Jr. going into last season really means something. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw this a few days ago. Jaywan Sider quote tweeted this random video from a Notre Dame account. It's Biased Notre Dame Fan on February 21st.
Sure.
It just shows a video of Nolan James Jr. and his footwork and agility going through drills. And Jaywan Sider quoted it with some interesting emojis. I don't think he's doing that for a guy who he doesn't figure will factor into the rotation. So am I reaching here a little bit? But you know what? I think he's actually going to be RB2. Next up, someone other than Jordan Faison will be the team's leading receiver.
I'm going to sell this because I think Jordan Faison, a little bit under the radar last year, just how good he was. And I think he's going to continue to get even better this year with not playing lacrosse and just the amount of easy access throws that CJ Carr is going to be able to get into him. Well, he might not be the most explosive guy on the team. And I think that there's other receivers that are still primed to have a great year. I do have a feeling he's going to tend to be the most reliable guy, especially with some uncertainty at the tight end position.
I'm selling this as well. I wish we had a stat for this, but I wish there was something that could show you. Maybe this exists on like True Media or something like that. The amount of separation between Jordan Faison and the nearest corner every time he caught the ball. Because it feels like in over half of his catches, he was just like wide the hell open because he's a really crisp route runner, and Notre Dame set up a lot of free access throws his way, and CJ Carr is especially good throwing that deep comeback or that deep out, and Faison just thrives in those situations. So I think they're going to still lean on him pretty heavily. I am a little bit concerned. Concern might be too strong of a word there, but like how good is Jordan Faison without a guy like Malachi Fields that the defense also has to worry about, where I think this year they're going to focus on Jordan Faison a little bit more unless Jaden Greathouse breaks out again or Graham or Porter, one of these guys really turns it on and they have to just basically change how they cover him. But that's something to keep an eye on, but I still think I'm going to sell this. Speaking of Greathouse, Jaden Greathouse will return to 2024-2025 national semifinal and championship game form in 2026.
Look, this is a bit optimistic, but I'm buying this one. It seemed like last year was a really weird year for Jaden Greathouse. Obviously, doesn't have even a target maybe in that Miami game. Definitely didn't have a catch. Has one nice catch against A&M. Makes a nice play on a ball in the Arkansas game, and then is just never heard from for the rest of the year. There was uncertainty about whether he was going to return or not. He did, and I think the fact that he did actually tells me a lot, and I do still think there's a lot of talent left in there. He and CJ Carr had never really developed rhythm at the start of last season, but I trust that they're using this spring and have been using this winter to do just that, and I think he's going to have a great season in 2026.
I appreciate your optimism. I'm going to sell this one. I just think we've seen too much of Jaden Greathouse in his career where he's just been an inconsistent player game to game, that all of a sudden he's just going to put together like a full season where he's tearing it up every single game. I mean, you even go back to his freshman year. He comes on the scene, scores 2 touchdowns in his first ever college football game, and then scored another one against NC State. But then he had that hamstring injury and then sort of disappeared during the middle part of the season and then came back against Wake Forest, had another touchdown as well. And then in 2024, Notre Dame found him a couple times against Texas A&M, and then just had a pretty average season, and then turns it on out of nowhere. I at the end. So I think there's going to be moments. Jane Greathouse will flash this year, hopefully a lot more than he did last season. But I'm just not ready to say he's going to go all out and have like a really great season from beginning to end, just because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that is true. Like I said, a little bit optimistic, but we'll see.
Charles Jagasaw will start on the offensive line to open the season.
Going to hold here. I don't even remember the last time we heard about Jagasaw from the coaching staff or the athletic training staff. And I know you and I had heard some stuff last year that was not super promising about his long-term prognosis. I think there was an assumption that he was going to come back at some point last season. Obviously, that never happened. I don't think that would have happened even if Notre Dame had made the playoff either, honestly. And if he's healthy, then yeah, I think he'll probably start. But I don't know that definitively. And until I hear that said otherwise, I'm going to hold here.
I remember we heard about him in like October when Marcus Freeman he didn't say he's out for the season, but he basically put any hopes of a comeback to bed during that press conference. And you're right, we just haven't heard a lot of concrete information coming from Notre Dame, and I understand it from their point of view, right? It's clear that Charles Jagasaw has had several setbacks because when he first suffered the injury, you're thinking, okay, well, they're hoping to get him back by USC. Obviously, that wasn't the case, and we haven't heard any update about whether or not he's going to participate in spring practice. Maybe Notre Dame is being coy for a reason, but I'm not very optimistic we're going to see him this spring. Hopefully he can return to working out with the team in the summer and then maybe ramp up during fall camp. But for right now, I'm going to have to hold on this as well.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that's the reality. Until we get a little bit more concrete information, it's too hard to say either way.
Last one on the offense. Notre Dame will finish in the top 5 in the country in scoring offense in 2026.
I'm buying this. I believe they finished second in scoring offense last year, if what I saw earlier was correct. And I do think that they're going to have some opportunities to put up some points against some pretty lousy teams throughout the balance of the season. And, especially if you're trying to build a Heisman campaign, like we've said, for your quarterback, you might try to stockpile points a little bit. So let's buy this.
They finished third. They had 41.8 points per game last season, which makes sense because Notre Dame's offense was clicking, and they also had the best running back in the country, the second best running back in the country, and apparently a future first-round pick at wide receiver in Malachi Fields. So they obviously have to replace a lot of production. I think that at the beginning of the year, there might be a little step back as the offensive line kind of figures things out. I think CJ Carr is going to come out hot, but the running game it's probably going to just take a second, right, for all these new wide receivers to get acclimated. So I don't think that they will score as many points out of the gate, but they didn't really score a ton in the first game last year. Then they really had an offensive explosion against Texas A&M, but I think they're going to finish in the top 5. Will they have more points per game than they did last year? I'm not sure, just because, that 70-point game against Syracuse counts for the offense. I don't know if we're going to have an outlier like that this year, but I think the expectation should be to finish in the top 5, even though they're losing Love and they're losing Price, because when you got a quarterback like CJ Carr and you have a schedule like Notre Dame does, you should be able to score 40 points per game.
Yeah, no doubt.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll be automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or just grab the conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. All right, before the season, I picked the Denver Nuggets to win the NBA Finals, and I'm sticking with that pick. They're plus 550 right now. I think they've got a great chance to do it. And even though the Thunder have been spectacular for another year in a row after winning the championship last season, I don't know. I just think Nikola Jokic is going to get it done. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver. It gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome back to Locked On Irish. Today, Luke Smith and I are buying, selling, or holding some predictions for Notre Dame in 2026 and beyond. But I wanted to remind you that you can get Locked On Irish ad-free with the Everydayer Club, plus you'll get access to the members-only Discord channel. Check it out at lockedonirish.supercast.com. Now back to Luke. All right, moving on to the defense. Notre Dame will finish with more sacks in the regular season this year than they did last year, and they had 34 sacks during the regular season in 2025.
Buying this. You think back to those first 2 games of the season, especially, they were just so unable to generate any pressure, really, particularly with 4 of the defensive line. And I think that's why so much of what they did this offseason was really to supplant that room and build that up with getting Tion Gray and Francis Brew. And then you've got Boubacar Traore another year healthier. I think Bryce Young is poised to have a big year. I think this defense is definitely going to surpass that, and they might even get into the 40s this year.
I'm going to buy this as well. This was a pretty easy buy for me with the way that people talk about Charlie Partridge and his ability to create pressure with his defensive line. I think that's going to help out. Traore coming back and being more than a full year removed from his injury. You got Bryce Young, and maybe Keon Keeley will make an impact there as well. But I think that they should be able to clear this pretty easily. This next one is interesting. Notre Dame will have multiple All-Americans on defense, and for the sake of this discussion, we will not limit it to first team. It'll just be first team, second team, or third team.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this, but it is interesting for a number of dimensions because I think obviously there's one obvious pick, and it's a guy who was a unanimous All-American last year, and Leonard Moore. But you've also got a bunch of other guys in that secondary that I think could make a case for it between both of the safeties, but it's pretty unlikely that both of them would be All-Americans, you would think. And then I think on the defensive line, depending on what steps Boubacar Traore takes, I think he's got a case for it. And if Kingston Biliamu also was healthy right away and we knew that he was going to be full go, I think he'd have a heck of a case too. But I do think that if this defense is going to be as good as we think it's going to be, they're probably going to have multiple All-Americans on that side of the ball.
It is too bad that KVA is not going to be out there because he would have been, all over the preseason watch list. And I actually think he's still on a few of them. I don't think people realize that he's probably not going to be out there at the start of the season, or at least is recovering from a very serious injury that he suffered late in the season before. But I'm buying this as well. I honestly would not be surprised if Tate Johnson and Adon Schuler are both All-Americans, but they're not both going to be first team. I think that, they're going to be in the mix there. I think you look at Drake Bowen, especially with KV out, I think he's going to take on more of a role, and he's going to be able to pad his stats a little bit more because they might tighten the rotation a little bit. I mean, you still have Jane Osbury, you still have Jalen Sneed, you still have Manfremo coming on as well. But Drake Bowen could be a guy. Like, you have someone at every level of the defense that realistically could be an All-American, so I'm buying it. But on the topic of Kingston Biliamu-Asa, KVA will return before October.
I'm going to hold on this because I think logical reason would tell you no way, especially considering he tore his ACL in November of last year. But I don't know what it is. It's just something about him where he kind of seems almost like he's really going to put everything into rehab, and there's a possibility that maybe he's ready earlier to go. So that's what I'm going to hold. But I think the devil's advocate of that is there's probably not a real need for him to return before October, given the depth of that room and given who Notre Dame plays in September. But I want to hear a little bit more this spring once we hear from the training staff and things like that and see where he's at, because I'm not completely ruling it out.
I'm selling it because of what you just mentioned. The schedule at the beginning of the season is favorable, so I think they're going to slowly bring him back. Now, there could be a scenario where they bring him out for like a few snaps for the BYU game, because that's at the end of September. That's going to be a really big game on the road.
Well, that's in October, actually. It's October 17th. So we got –
well, there you go. All right, so we're good. I'm selling it, and I had the wrong reasons why. But – I just think that they could slow play this as much as possible. They have good linebackers in front of them, so it's not like there's going to be a need to bring him back as soon as possible. And I think now that we're talking about the BYU game in mid-October, the goal should be to have him ready to go and be as close to 100% as possible for that game. And if they do that, I don't think they're going to play him at all in September. All right, Francis Brew will be the most impactful transfer on the team.
I'm buying this. I think when Notre Dame got him, he was kind of the most proven commodity of anybody that they did get. Besides, I mean, if you want to talk about Spencer Porath, the kicker, maybe that too. But I just think that he's definitely unique and somebody they really haven't had since. You could maybe compare him to Howard Cross a little bit, but I think he's even a little bit different than Cross in that respect. And I think he's going to have a massive impact in playing for Chris Partridge. That's going to make a big difference. Charlie Partridge, gosh, I almost screwed that up there. I think that's going to make a big difference. And I do think, while, you might want to wish cast Quincy Porter or Mylan Graham into this conversation, I think it's probably Brew that's going to prove to be the most impactful.
I'm buying this as well. He might not have the best stat sheet because he plays defensive tackle, but when you think about his impact, especially for the rest of the defensive line and the defense as a whole, I think he's going to be extremely impactful. I think he's a plug-and-play starter, and he's going to be able to make some plays in the backfield. He had 7.5 TFLs last season for Pittsburgh. I think he could have an even bigger number this year, especially when you think about the support he's going to have around him. Like, he didn't have a Boubacar Traore next to him. He did have a Rasheem Biles behind him last year on Pittsburgh, who's very, very good. But I just think he's going to make an immediate impact, and also playing for Partridge, a guy who recruited him, knows him very well. I think he's going to be set up for success. This isn't a prompt, but where do you think Keon Keeley is going to rank amongst the most impactful transfers?
So what do they bring in? 8? Is that right? Let's say 5. I'm keeping my hopes relatively measured for now.
I agree. Okay, Christian Gray will be the primary starting nickel.
I'm selling this. I know that they've been doing some cross training with him. I think Notre Dame does a lot of cross training with a lot of players right now. I just think he's going to stay at corner like he's been the last few years. Now, that asks the question, who's going to start at nickel? And it could be Jaden Saunders. It could be McKinney coming in from Colorado. I actually just think Dallas Golden's going to seize the job and be the starting nickel. But I'm selling this. I think Gray's going to start at his usual spot.
I'm selling this too. I think they're going to try it out during spring practice, and we'll probably talk about it at some point. It'll be a consideration. I like the idea of Dallas Golden just going out there and winning the job. I mean, you remember, like, it's funny how it works with recruiting, right? Notre Dame brings in this top 5 class. They have a bunch of super talented defensive backs, and everyone's really excited about guys like Joey O'Brien and Carr Adams for good reason. But in the cycle before, that was Dallas Golden. I was super excited. Everyone was super excited about him. And then he goes out there and plays as a true freshman in a position that he was basically learning on the fly. And it was pretty good for the most part. But I think a full offseason dedicated to that spot. I guess the only question is, does the Notre Dame coaching staff want him there? Because it didn't seem like they wanted him going. They didn't seem like they wanted him at nickel going into the season. But then they obviously had to change that once Devontae Smith went down.
Yeah, that's going to be the real question is what do they want? Maybe with another year of maturity and growth, and that's how they feel more comfortable in it. And also, I know they were doing this when Mike Mickens was still around, but maybe with a different voice in the room, we find somebody else at that nickel spot, and they kind of sort it out. So that'll be interesting to observe.
Tay Johnson will lead the team in takeaways, buying or selling it.
It feels like a pretty easy buy just because the other option is Leonard Moore, and I just don't think teams outside of maybe Stanford again are going to throw it that much.
I'm buying this too. He should have had more interceptions last year. Remember, he dropped his first 3 chances. Like, he had one against Boston College that would have been a walk-in pick six, and it just hit him right in the chest. I think he's going to clean that up this year, and I think he's going to lead the team in interceptions because you're right. No one's going to really throw to Leonard Moore. Honestly, it could be Christian Gray just because he's going to get targeted a whole lot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I just think Tay Johnson is going to make a bunch of plays for this defense. All right. At least one true freshman will start a game this season on defense. They don't have to be the primary starter. They just need to start one game.
I'm going to sell this. I know maybe there's a chance for a Joey O'Brien or a Carr Adams to get on the field, barring if there's injury. And maybe this is foolish to sell just because there were freshmen that started games last year for that very reason. But I'm trying to speak into existence. Notre Dame's going to have very good health this year, so I'm selling this.
I'm going to hold this. I need to see what happens in spring practice because I think Rodney Dunham is going to be competing for playing time right away. And Joey O'Brien is a player who is so good and he has such freakish traits that I think you got to figure out a way to get him on the field. Mm-hmm. And I've sort of been thinking about the idea of Joey O'Brien as the nickel, kind of like Kyle Hamilton was as a freshman, because he's not a name that's really brought up all that often. And I don't even know if Notre Dame is even really considering him for that role. But when you think about his profile and just that conversation with Marcus Freeman and Joey O'Brien, it just makes me think that they're going to figure out a way to play him. Now, starting and playing are two different things, obviously, but It would not shock me. I just need to see what happens in spring, and then I'll be able to make my decision. Okay, last one on the defense. Notre Dame will have a better defense in 2026 than they did in 2024. And for the sake of this discussion, we're going to say at full health.
Okay, good, because I was just going to say I'm trying to speak good health into existence here. Let's buy this. I think much like the 2024 team had, this 2026 team, like we just talked about, has the ability to have All-Americans at every level of the defense. And I think we saw the jump that a Notre Dame defense took under Al Golden in year 2 in 2023, and then it was an even another thing in 2024. I think a second year under Chris Ash here is going to see a similar type jump now that he knows his personnel a little bit better. And I just think this defense is probably going to be a nudge better than 2024, because I know you said assuming full health. The reality is we can only really judge the 2024 defense off what they had out there, and they did have a lot of injuries. And so ultimately that was a very good defense, but it wasn't as good as it could have been just because there were so many injuries over the course of that.
I'm going to buy this. And I think you could make a counterpoint that the 2024 defense was never fully healthy because Howard Cross started the season with an ankle injury. He was still able to go out there and get a sack against Texas A&M, but it felt like whenever he started to get healthy, then Riley Mills was dealing with something, and those are two of the most important players on the entire defense. And then at linebacker, you did have Jack Heiser, but you also had a bunch of young guys too, and then in the secondary, I just think that what Notre Dame has going into this season, even though that 2024 team had Benjamin Morrison, at least at the start of the year, I just think that this defense is better. And with Chris Ash, I know that, there were some healthy concerns after the first 2 games last year. I think he's going to take a big jump now that he has a staff full of people who know him pretty well, and they're all going to be on the same page in year 2. Luke is going to be right back here with us in a moment to predict whether the college football playoff will return to South Bend in 2026. But first, a word from our sponsors.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Okay, we're going to wrap things up here. We've got 5 more. Big picture, cover some different topics here. Notre Dame will host a playoff game in 2026.
I'm going to sell this because I think they're going to be a top 4 seed and hopefully play in the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl or what have you in the quarterfinals. So let's sell it.
I am selling this too. I think Notre Dame is going to be a top 4 seed in the college football playoff because I think they have a very good chance of going undefeated. Even if they finish 11-1, they're probably in the top 4. Although I will admit, now that they have the straight seeding format, if they are 5th, I probably wouldn't hate it, especially when you think about the recent history. I know it's only a 2-year sample, and obviously there's some flaws with the first year and the teams who earned that bye because they were giving them out to the highest ranked conference champions. But, you know, I do think there's something to be said, especially with this year and the just completely whack college football playoff schedule and with how much separation is between the games. I think if you have a bye, it's like 47 days in between the last regular season game and the first round, right?
Wow, that's wild. I did not realize that.
Maybe it's like between the first round and second round. I might have that number wrong.
I hope it's not between the first and the second round because that's even crazier.
Yeah. But I also just had so much fun at that Notre Dame Indiana game. Like I would love to have another home playoff game against a 12 seed. That would be a whole lot of fun. Okay, recruiting one here. Notre Dame will finish with the top 5 recruiting class in 2027 for back-to-back years.
What are they at now? Like 4? Right?
Yeah, they're 4 right now, but they don't have, I mean, they only have like 7 commits at this point in time. If you look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, which I'm pulling up now, they are at 4 with 7 commits, 4 stars, and a 3-star.
Let's hold on this. I kind of want to sell it just because I do think it would be very difficult for them to do back-to-back top 5 classes, but last year, they kind of had a massive run of recruits kind of right after we're doing this now. It was in March and April, and they really kind of went on a heater there. So I want to hold and see what happens over this kind of spring break period and see if they got anything of note.
I'm going to hold on this as well, but I do think we're going to find out or at least have a really good idea within the next couple months. Because if you remember last year, they had that drought once Chad Bowden left, and they were sort of reconfiguring the entire personnel department. A lot of people were like, how are they not getting any commits? They just won to the national championship. This was supposed to lead to a recruiting run. And then it was Rodney Dunham, and that happened right around spring practice. And then you had Iwatade, and then you had a flurry of commitments in the spring. Then they followed it up with that insane run in the summer. Right. But once they landed Dunham and Iwatade basically back-to-back, you realize like, oh shit, like this class is a real chance to be special here. So we're not there yet. I think we'll have a really good sense after spring practice whether they're going to have a shot at the top 5 class or not. All right, back to football. Marcus Freeman will finish the season undefeated at home for the first time in his tenure.
I'm going to buy this. There's no reason not to. There's really two difficult games of note. They're both late in the year. Both in November.
Well, the difficult games aren't always his problem at home.
That is true. If Rice is the one that get them to trip up, then this might just be a thing, and that might just have to be added to the Bible of like, all right, just got to bet against Notre Dame at home against a FCS school every year. But I think he finally gets it done this year,
especially in home openers because he's 1-3 in home openers at Notre Dame.
Wow. Yeah, and the one win is against an FCS school, I think, right? So,
Right.
not great.
I'm buying this. I think that game against Miami is going to be one of the most hostile home games that I can remember. I mean, the 2023 Notre Dame Ohio State game was a huge game. College Game Day was there. It's one of the biggest home games of our lifetimes. But the Miami game, with everything that happened last year, I think that's going to be so hostile. I think that there's, assuming Notre Dame is fully healthy and ready to go for that one, they just simply have to win that game. And the other opponents, there's just not really a team that should be able to compete with Notre Dame. But now that I said that, they're probably going to drop one to Rice. So we're going to move on to the next one here. This is a good one. I was proud of this one. Marcus Freeman will leave Notre Dame before Micah Shrewsbury does.
So I was going to sell this before tonight because I don't think Marcus Freeman is going to leave Notre Dame after this next season, and I do think I did think Micah Shrewsbury would see his tenure terminated after another bad year next year. But now I'm definitely selling this because it's what the heck's the score? The last I saw was 81-41.
They're down. They're on a little run now. They're only down 32.
Jesus, yeah. That guy should be fired tonight. I'm sorry. I know he doesn't have his two best players, but it's every day he coaches Notre Dame basketball is an insult to the Golden Dome at this point. So, he's going to be gone.
I'm holding this. I just don't think there's a way that they fire Micah Shrewsbury after year 3, despite how bad this is, despite how pathetic this performance is against Duke. Without their two best players, we should add, but apparently Micah Shrewsbury got hurt on the sidelines during this game too, so we got to deal with that as well. There is a world, I think, where Marcus Freeman leads Notre Dame to a national championship in 2026, and then he leaves in Jim Harbaugh fashion, except Marcus Freeman would not be running away from NCAA sanctions like Harbaugh was. I just think that if he does that, it's sort of going to be like mission accomplished, and I think that there's a real chance that Notre Dame wins it this year. But I think odds are he's going to stick around for at least a couple more seasons. He's really bought in, and he's been recruiting the class of 2027 very aggressively. He's paid extremely well. So I'm just going to have to hold on for that for now and just see what happens with this basketball program. If it somehow gets any worse, then Micah Shrewsbury might be on the out, but I don't know. I think we're going to have to hold and then revisit this conversation next year. Last one. Marcus Freeman will win a national championship at Notre Dame.
I mean, if you're not buying this one, I don't know what you're doing this for. So, yeah, you got to buy this one.
I am buying this one as well. Hopefully it's this season because they're going all in on this season. And, how do you feel about that? Like, as we wrap things up here, on one hand, it is so fun and it's so exciting for Notre Dame to be a preseason favorite to win the national championship. They have a real chance of doing so. And there have only been a few seasons in our lifetimes where we could say that's actually a realistic possibility. And now it's here. But also, with all that added, with all these great expectations comes a ton of added pressure.
Yeah, and there are definitely questions, too. I mean, we talked about it. They lost the two best running backs in the country and potentially a third. They lost 3 top 50 skill position players in the NFL draft this year, which they've never really had before. And that, frankly, makes this past season more and more haunting as time goes on, just seeing how that went down. And they'll have some questions to answer. So, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, especially when you think about that defense, it's beyond loaded and they've got a pretty special quarterback. So it's exciting. I'm sure this is it's already been a super long off season, and here we are on February 24th. There's a lot more time left. So it's going to continue to drag. But once we finally get there, I hope it's all worth it.
Luke, thanks as always for the time. I'm going to let you go because we have 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in this Notre Dame Duke game, and the Irish are now down 44 points.
Jeez.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks again for making this your first watch or listen of the day. If you're watching along on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and you know what? Jump in the comments with your buy, sell, or hold answers as well. Or if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you're following the show, leave a 5-star rating, and drop a review. It really helps the show grow more than you know. And keep those mailbag questions coming in for Friday in the YouTube comments on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. And by the way, if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Irish ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnIrish.supercast.com to join the club. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow, same time, same place.